Hello, everybody, and for the benefit of those listening on the audio, my name's James, and you're listening to my Ask James stream on YouTube, where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. Let's get into the questions and see what's being asked. We got the FPL Happy Hour podcast. Boys are in first. Afternoon, James. Very important question. Is it coming home? It might be, my friend. I think we're in a position we can believe to dream about it, much like we were in this position, obviously, 3 years ago, where the drawers opened up again magnificently for England. And the fear, I think, is we're now in a position where I don't think this was quite the case 3 years ago, because we've got a much stronger team now than what we had then. But not reaching the final at this stage is almost going to feel like a failure now. So, and from that perspective, that if we get to a final, it's a home game, 60,000+ in Wembley. We're favourites for the tournament, basically, because of the way the drawers opened up. Are we the best team in the tournament? No, I don't think so. I think there's a couple of teams who we could play in the final, notably Italy, in my opinion, who I would still make us underdogs against. But we have an incredible opportunity. It's interesting. A lot of people saying we'll never have a better opportunity. Well, we all said this 3 years ago, so who knows, it might be a better opportunity again in Qatar in 18 months time. But yeah, with it being at home as well, I mean, obviously the game this weekend's not at home. Obviously play Ukraine in Rome, but we couldn't have asked really for much better opponents than what we've got left. I think the Danes are a very good side. If that's who we end up playing in the semis, will not be easy by any stretch. I think it's gone from that kind of euphoric feeling that we had winning Tuesday, where the little bit of come down and the realization is sinking in for everybody about Saturday that, like, we cannot lose that game. We have to win. And as much as everybody wants to go, oh, I want England to play more adventurous football and all that kind of shit. Listen, it's the same again this weekend. Go and win. If we win the next 3 games 1-0 and win this tournament, no one is going to give a shit if a lot of the football was boring. And actually, Tuesday was much better. It was a decent game of football. Yeah, there was a lot of chess play. There was a lot of tactical stuff in the game. But it was a 50-50 game, and England gave it everything to win it. We've got a great chance. Nick Edmonds says, Dolberg or Polson to start for Denmark? Well, I guess that depends a little bit on Polson's fitness. Obviously missed the game against Wales. I would have thought that the 2 goals have probably done Dolberg enough to keep his place in the side. But there's every chance whichever one starts might only play 55 minutes or so and the other one might come on. I'd say it's a possibility. I think probably both are avoidable unless you're desperate for forward at that kind of budget area. I think if you pin me down, I'd probably go Dolberg. I think it would be harsh for him to be left out after the 2 goals against Wales. Austin Laley said, afternoon, James, how do you think England should set up against Ukraine? Well, we should stop talking about it and let Gareth do his thing, because he knows best, right? Personally, I think it will be a back 4, and that's how I'd set up against Ukraine. I think Ukraine have shown they can play 4-3-3 and 3-5-2 in this tournament. I think it's most likely to be the 3-5-2, which, if England have big domination of the ball, could very easily become a 5-3-2 for Ukraine. So I think more advanced players in starting positions for England is the way we should go. So for me, 4-2-3-1 or even a case, because I think of Ukraine's 3, 2 of them will be real sitting midfielders, I would have thought. It's even a case to say 4-1-4-1 and really put the pressure on. I think I'd be very surprised if Southgate went that way. I'd be very tempted to go 4-1-4-1 and play Henderson as the deepest and actually give Rice and Phillips a break. I think both are on bookings, aren't they? And the bookings get annulled after the quarterfinals. I think that's possible. I see no reason why England couldn't play a midfield 3 of, say, Henderson with Mount and Foden ahead of that against Ukraine. I think that would be fine at the weekend. And yeah, the fullbacks will have to sit in a little bit more and be a bit more cautious. But we play with 2 high wide players. We could play Sterling right, Grealish left, for example. Cain obviously up front. And that's just the sort of system I'd want to go with for the game on Saturday. I imagine it would be a 4-2-3-1 personally. Luke, FPL Happy Hour podcast again says Neuro Fantasy with free subs. Sterling, Morata, and Stones in. I think you meant transfers. Can get to 9 players plus KDB. Is it worth taking -4s for additional? If so, who? It looks like KDB and Hazard are probably not going to be available for Belgium tomorrow, but they could be in the semis. I'd be a bit reluctant to take a hit to get that out. I said yesterday I was probably going to go 3 English defensive and Morata. I've now changed my mind a little bit. I'm probably going to go 2 English defensive, Morata and Cain, I think, which will be a -4 for myself. I'll confirm that tomorrow on the podcast. I think it depends. The players you're getting in, if they're going to get to the semi, it's almost worth it, right? If they're not, it's probably not. So it depends on how much do you fancy these guys. So I feel like personally, Spain and England are the 2 teams probably to target from that perspective. I don't mind if people want to take -8s and stuff. It's not going to benefit you this week, but I think in the long run, hopefully over the 3 game weeks, it may very well do so. The -4 gets me to 11, though one of those is Berardi, who we think probably won't start for Italy, but he could come on and return. Quite feasible. Italy have had a few substitutes in the tournament coming on return, have not been the only side. We've seen that with the Spanish team, particularly as well. I mean, it depends where you're at. Are you risk averse as well? Are you happy to take the risk at this stage for perhaps the longer goal of all 3 game weeks, and I think particularly the semi-final? You'd have to fancy, I think, the going in on the England players. If you believe they're going to win the game, then it's probably worth it, isn't it? The -4 for the quarter and the semi. Luke Hopkinson says, Neves to follow Nuno, James. Would you be happy? Also, thoughts on Nuno appointment? I think Ruben Neves, like many of the Wolves squad, had a bit of a disappointing season. Stock definitely lowered somewhat. Don't mind Ruben as a player. I think watching Højbjerg with Delaney makes me feel like another all-energy player in midfield for Tottenham would be beneficial for Højbjerg. I think he's had a smashing tournament, and many of you know I'm very critical of him. I've seen a different Højbjerg. Good advance. In fact, I wouldn't say he's the worst fantasy buy this week. I really wouldn't, actually, if you're looking to kind of fill in a cheapish midfielder slot, because he does get more advanced for Denmark. On Nuno, the word I would use is underwhelming. It got to the point where, honestly, it almost become a little bit, I don't care anymore, like anyone. I think Tottenham fans made their feelings very clear on Gattuso, but I wasn't happy about Fonseca a couple of weeks ago, and you kind of had a week to think about it. I was like, yeah, okay. I think if Nuno had just been appointed in May, I'd probably go, okay. I think from Daniel Levy's perspective, his promise for the Tottenham DNA, the return of attacking, entertaining, flair football, development of youth, which is fine under Nuno, I'm pretty confident in. But the brand of football, it doesn't fit in on what we've seen over the last 12 months. It must say it's easy to forget that Wolves for the first 3 years under Nuno were very, very good. But does it fit in terms of brand of what Tottenham are looking for? No. I think it's come round to, it got so far into, I mean, it's July the 1st. They've appointed him yesterday. Training starts on Monday. It actually gone on so far that it's almost, for a short-term perspective, it's almost beneficial that they've appointed someone that already knows the Premier League. He's obviously been in it last season. He can come in. He'll know everyone, the majority of players anyway. He'll know 80, 90% of the Tottenham squad, strengths, weaknesses already. He's an intelligent manager. Underwhelming. I thought the way he spoke last night was very good. The thing that stood out to me was that he looked energised, and I think he looked lost for a lot of last season at Wolves. And a lot of that might be that we're hearing strong rumours the Wolves might be selling a number of assets this summer. He may well have thought himself that I can't take this any further than what he'd done. It looked like he'd lost his energy. When I saw him speak last night, I thought, well, you look energised. And the clear words of, we will make you proud. Listen, if he can do that, fine. Fine. And bring that team collective back together, give the fans an identity again, make us feel proud in the football team. That's first part. Forget the trophies and all the rest of that. So look, he's in now. There's not really much point me moaning about it. I have no dislike for him as a person. I like him, other than we have some issues in Friday press conferences, which is going to piss off FPL managers. But don't dislike him. I like him as an individual. I think he speaks well. I think tactically he's quite astute. Having done a little bit of reading last night, which I will do some more, it seems that he's not necessarily wed to the systems we saw him play at Wolves. So most people are familiar with kind of the 3-5-2 or the 3-4-3. But actually look back historically at Valencia, he played back four quite a lot. He was obviously trying to evolve Wolves into a back four last year, which kind of fell apart with Raul Jimenez's injury. So I don't think there's any guarantee that it'll be a back three from Tottenham. So I see people already all over the timeline last night. Matt Doherty, 5 million. I wouldn't bank on it, honestly. And stop worrying about it. I'll be able to tell you in 3-4 weeks once I've seen Tottenham in a couple of friendlies what system Tottenham are going to play in the summer. I can't answer that in the new season. I can't answer that now. So I wouldn't even think about the implications from an FPL perspective as yet. I'm coming round to it. I have to, right? He's my manager now. So even when Mourinho was appointed, I obviously hated it and said that from day one, but give him the backing. And he did get my backing for about 2 months. Nuno will get longer than that. Deserves a chance. The team and the squad's a little bit of a mess at the moment. If Paratici seems certain, the new managing director, that Nuno can play this brand of football that Daniel Levy had promised, and if that's the case, and we perform as a collective again, I'll be happy. He's a likable bloke. Let's crack on. Let's get on with it now. Let's get the players out the club that need to be sold. Is the priority. Then we obviously need to get some new blood in as well. There needs to be a recycle of the squad from top to bottom, basically. But yeah, look, he's in now. He gets my full back in. Let's give him a chance. Hopefully it will work out. Stian Bosdell says, how are you and what do you want to talk about? The floor is yours. What do I want to talk about? Well, I've just been talking with my missus for the last hour or so for a podcast we're doing on Patreon, which I think the patrons are going to find quite amusing. We'll get that released for you a little bit later today, guys. That's what's on my mind at the moment was, oh, yeah, good little laugh with my missus doing a podcast. How bizarre. Tom Johnson says, hi, James. Regarding Sancho to Manchester United, obviously a massive fee and a class player for Dortmund, but I've never been impressed by him in an England shirt. How do you think you'll get on in the Premier League? I think I agree with your England comment. One of the things I was saying pre-tournament was I didn't see that he would start for England. I think only the Kosovo home game was at Southampton where he really stood out in terms of his ability in an England shirt. So it's not surprised me. It surprised me he's had so little involvement, i.e. 7 minutes. It's not surprised me that he hasn't been starting the games. Incredible talent, brilliant player. There are other people who watch far more Bundesliga football than myself who are mental for him. Clearly a good player. Price-wise, FPL, I think we're probably looking at 9.5, possibly 10. I think Sonny's 10. I'm not sure it'll match that. So I think 9.5. I think it needs to be cheapest to try and take people away from Bruno a little bit as well. I'm sure he'll do great. I think he would go into United team as first choice starter on the right hand side, dependent on system. But I would see him playing on the right of a front three, most likely, or in the 4-2-3-1 on the right. Might not hit the ground running. It might depend how far England go in the tournament. For example, if England go to the final, is he going to play game week 1? How much of a break is he possibly going to have? But I'm sure he'll do very well. And I'm sure that by the time we get to Qatar, he may well be in the England team as well. And Wilson says, afternoon, James. I find Nuno an interesting appointment. It's certainly not what was promised. Agreed. But would you say he played negative football in his first 2 Prem seasons with Wolves? I thought they were a great side then. If he can recapture that with Spurs, it could be great. If it's like last season, it could be awful. Exactly that. Yeah, I've not really got anything much more to add. I've seen a few people met in the Mourinho comparison. I mean, Mourinho teams only played for 20 minutes and then defended. Whereas Wolves teams are the opposite, right? Never playing the first half, only playing the second. So, I mean, psychologically, that's better, finishing a game better than you started. Let's give him a chance. Let's give him we have to. We can debate it till the cows come home now. Paratici thinks he can play the brand of football that Levy's promised. I think Levy's been convinced. It's very clear that he was never on Tottenham shortlist in the first place. I think it's fairly obvious he was never number 1 choice for the job. But it's gone so far and so deep, as I said, that the fact they've got someone in who's got the experience of the league might be quite telling and helpful. I think it's also telling that he's been given a 2-year contract, which is the amount of time left on Mauricio Pochettino's contract at Paris Saint-Germain. I would not be surprised, and I mean this in the nicest way, I would not be surprised if it started badly for Nuno and it went badly for Pochettino at PSG. If Pochettino came available, Tottenham just went and got him back, because the two wanted each other back. Whether that's changed now Paratici is in, I'm not sure. And my understanding is he'll probably get the final say now in terms of who's going to be the head coach of the football team. But I wouldn't be surprised if Nuno kind of does this squad evolution for the next 2 years and then Pochettino takes back over. I could see that. Tom Johnston, that's the one I've covered. Nasu says, would you take that Laporte plus 100 million offer for Cain? Would I personally? No. Should Tottenham? Yes, possibly. But Laporte doesn't want to play for Tottenham. I've explained this on a couple of other pods we've done recently, particularly on Patreon. The Laporte, Sterling's, Bernardo Silva's, Gabriel Jesus, they don't want to play for Tottenham. So what's the point? I think that's why Tottenham want the money that they want, which I don't see it ever get. If Levy's adamant it's 150 million or nothing, which when you see some of the fees going round is understandable, then the deal probably won't happen. If it's going to be near 120, then I think it probably will happen. If I could take a player from Man City in exchange, yeah, I would take Laporte, or as I explained to some of the patrons earlier in the week, I'd take a lot of their kids, actually, the ones who then want the opportunity. Adam France, Dyer or Davis? Oh, do one, Adam. Much love, mate. Nasu says, any plans to start with any Spurs players this season? Yeah. I did a draft when the game opened. Heung-min Son's in it at the moment. That could very easily change. It's probably every chance that I won't start with him. It's every chance I won't start with any Tottenham players. I do think Son is good value at 10 million. I think once we know more, there will be at least one defensive asset that looks good as we get nearer the new season. It could be Joe Rodon. It could be Matt Doherty. I'll be able to give you those answers in 4 weeks or so. But I don't know what he's going to do from a setup perspective yet. I just wouldn't guarantee that it's going to be the same as what it was at Wolves. Denver CPT 786 afternoon. James, easy question. Jadon Sancho's FPL price, in your opinion, will be first in my team with even Tony. Thanks. As I said, probably 9.5-ish, I think, probably. Rob Pick says, hi, mate. FPL, boring, I know. Of what you've seen, who do you think are the most underpriced and overpriced assets? I'd say Fofana and Vardy seem a strong case. You get no arguments on that, mate. I see the new Leicester forward. It's Docker, is it? 7.5 million. Probably takes the appeal away from me and Acho a little bit, actually, as well. Yeah, I wouldn't argue that. Vardy overpriced, Fofana underpriced. I think that's about right. You possibly say that if Cain stays with Tottenham, it's overpriced, possibly. Yeah, I mean, Wesley Fofana, stand out, 4.5. I can't believe that price, personally. Damien Rosowski, hi, James. Is Matt Doherty at 5 million a great option now with Nuno in charge of Tottenham? Thanks for your question, Damien. I'm going to go on to the next one. Rob Pick says, in terms of Euro games, fan team and UEFA game, do you prefer hits for defenders or attacking players? Defenders are lower ceiling, but maybe a higher floor than trying to guess the right attacker. Yeah, it's something I alluded to on one of the Euro pods earlier in the week or late last week about kind of priority for me in the later stages of this tournament is making sure I've got kind of full defense. Like for the final, I would ideally want 5 defenders from one team if it's possible. And just accept that whoever I've got from the other team, I have the best 3 from that team, go all in on it and have 3 fillers from the other team to make a complement if that's what I could get to. So I think the games on Monday, I'm pretty sure I said that Monday, and then the games on Monday night were wild. Makes you think, oh, I'm not so sure about that. But it could have the reverse psychology, actually, where Spain and Switzerland themselves both had those mad games themselves, now play each other. Are they going to go and do the same thing again, or is it going to be a little bit more constrained? Probably will be a calmer game of football. Definitely a case to steam into defenders, particularly if if you're picking up Spanish or English and you think they're going to get to the final. I think Spain's more difficult to read because of the changes Luis Enrique's made defensively. Whereas, if you go for the likes of, particularly Stones and Maguire, that if they're fit, they're going to play the games. There isn't a doubt about it. So that's a little bit more secure. The flip is, of course, Rob has kind of alluded to at the start, I'm now thinking of going Cain as well. Because I think if there was a player that's going to explode this week, there's every chance it's him. Him, Sterling and Morata would probably be the 3. And I'd have those 3 as attacking options this week, going into Euro fantasy at least anyway. So it depends on your personal preference. I think the inner fantasy manager in you, Rob, thinks if I'm taking hits, I have to take it for the attacking players. But I don't think that's necessarily the case here. I think it's personal preference, my friend. Andrew Jarvis says, would you recommend playing Sky Fantasy Football if you like the format of Euro Fantasy? Andrew, I would recommend that everybody who can play Sky Fantasy Football play Sky Fantasy Football. I promise you. I promise you, come and play the game. Come and join us on Wednesdays next year. Gary Mantle says, hi, James. Nuno, Jose, and Dotti are all George Mendes clients. Yeah, tell me about it. Do you think that's just coincidental, or do you think he's starting to have some influence at Spurs? I've spoken about this, and I'm a bit worried about it. I do think he's having an influence at Spurs. I don't like it. There are pros and cons. There are pros in terms of getting these best young Portuguese gems. I mean, he's basically got every young Portuguese player under his agency, right? So it seems. So there's some pros in that in terms of if they can find the right ones. Like obviously, Wolves got Neto and stuff like that. Diogo Jota, quite young. There's definitely some benefits to that, but it's all a bit grubby. And I mean, if you do some reading into kind of what went wrong for Gattuso at Fiorentina and the fact that he wanted these three players who were all Mendes clients and the amount Mendes was demanding agent fees, is all a bit. I'm not comfortable with it, but let's not pretend that there's a lot in football that isn't murky these days, unfortunately. No, I'm not comfortable about it, Gary. I'm a bit concerned about it. Alistair Coper says, hey, mate, interested to hear your wildcard side. I'm on wildcard myself, loving Europods. Congrats on doing so well in it too. Thanks, mate. I haven't put a wildcards team together, which I've said I will do for the podcast tomorrow, even though I can't do it myself. I'll come up with a team that I would do, and I think Suj is going to bring his likely team to the table for that podcast tomorrow. I haven't done it yet, Alistair, to be honest, but I think it would be very heavy England, Spain, Italy for me. I mean, it'd be England, Spain, Denmark, and a hedging of the bets like we discussed yesterday, Belgium and Italy. I think that's where I'd be at with it. Tiffy Ferreira, James, what forward options should we consider for game week 1, and what is good? 2 strikers or 3 strikers? There's loads of options. I mean, from the start, Villa have got a great opening 3. So Ollie Watkins, subject to if they might buy someone else. Danny Welbeck, 5.5. Worst suggestions, Brighton have a good opening run. Calvert-Lewin again, 8 million, although that might be dependent on England's opening schedule. Rodrigo is a differential shout from Leeds, perhaps. I think those are the ones from a fixture perspective I'd want to be targeting. Tony, obviously great. There are loads of options. I think I'm likely to probably start with 2, though. It might even only be 1. I wouldn't rule out me starting with a 4-5-1 and 2 4.5 million forwards, actually. And if I'm very wrong about that, then I'll have to be wildcarding early, which is not something I particularly like doing. But it's so far away. It's like last week, you're looking at it and going, Iheanacho. Oh, yeah, well, if he brings that form in, what does the new signing now mean? Unless they're going to stay in that system once Harvey Barnes back fit. So please don't overthink things now. Honestly, there's just no point. There's no point overlooking it. If Cain leaves, Tottenham are going to buy a new forward. Who's it going to be? What price are they going to be? There's so many things that could change yet that it's just not worth worrying yourself about too much in terms of who's going to be in your draft and stuff. Like most people, I've done a first draft. I don't intend particularly to look at it much again for the next few weeks. Even with the Tottenham news last night, my headspace is so in what England are doing at the moment is what's most important to me. Jacko says, hi, James. Who do you think will be rested versus Ukraine? I'm on Limitless, but tempted to go for Mount and Foden over Sterling as can see him being rested. Don't see Sterling being rested, mate. No, I think Sterling Cain will play. Sterling Cain will play. Maguire Stones will play. Pickford will play. Those 5, I'd be astonished if they didn't start the game. I think the rest of the team is potentially up for debate in terms of rotation. So, no, I wouldn't try and overthink that. The game's on Saturday rather than Friday, so you're probably not going to have the information. I would personally be very surprised if Mason Mount didn't play. Just go for Sterling, mate. He's the man in form. 9.7-ish or so. It's decent value with the form he's in, 3 and 4. And actually, if you look at his England record going back further, it's something like 15 and 16 now or something. It's good. Back Raz, he's doing all right, mate. Roseanne Fleur, hi James. I want to meet you on 24th of July in the Editors tab. Is it okay to come? Any entrance fee? So definitely come, Roseanne, please. I understand some of the news this morning suggested that from July the 19th, restrictions may be lifted. Now we need to wait for confirmation from that. So my advice for Zan, if you're traveling from anywhere, like I've said to a lot of people, please don't go booking trains or anything yet until we get some clarity from the government. I know Sidge thought that was funny. Clarity from the government's not something that's happened much in the last 18 months, 18 years or 180 years, whatever. But no, in terms of the guidelines for COVID, please wait till we get something that says, okay, on the 24th of July, we'll be able to do what we want in the pub. There's no entrance fee or anything like that. Just rock up, mate. Literally just rock up. So we're going to meet up about 3:00. We'll make sure we're there on time before that to kind of greet and say hello to people. It's just a meet up in the pub. It's not going to be a podcast or anything like that. We're obviously doing it as a kind of joint organised with Who Got the Assist and the FPL surgery. So everybody's welcome. Just come, have a chat, meet like-minded fantasy managers, like-minded football lovers. We'll have a very good day of it. I was there for the game on Tuesday night, and I will be on Saturday night as well. Brilliant atmosphere in there. It's a good venue. It's quite spacious. 150 or so in there won't feel packed. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get some good news and it'll be fine. But yeah, just rock up. Everybody is welcome. Please come and join us and meet us and just mingle. And by 24th of July, I might even have a conversation I'm interested in about FPL with people. FPL Wilson says, thoughts on Patrick Vieira as the new Palace manager? Has it been confirmed? I'm pretty sure it is going to happen. I don't know enough about his managerial spell. He was at, I want to say he was at Nice, wasn't he, Patrick Vieira? No, I don't think there's been any confirmation from Palace yet, but all the ITK seem to think it's going to happen. Don't know, but I will do the research for you, my friend. I will do the research for you. I think whoever goes in there's got a naughty job to do. I was listening to Andros Townsend's interview yesterday, who's one of the Palace players out of contract. He's like, I'm talking to clubs, but it's kind of saying that Palace can call me if they want me to come back and stuff. They've got so many players out of contract. It's going to be a very tough job for whoever goes in there. I think this is a really dangerous season for Palace, which if they get right, can then possibly progress to what Palace fans want / expect, which is hopefully a top half team. But I think this season is very, very dangerous because of the other 17 teams that are in the league again from last year. I'd look at them and I struggle to see who will be in trouble. Burnley, imagine if they keep the squad together and Sean Dyche there, it's same as with them. Brighton, we all think will get better. Newcastle for the last 4 months of the season were good, right? Southampton, if they fix things defensively, they're a good side. They're very capable on their day, which leaves you looking at Palace in the bottom three and thinking, could be. But I'd also be honest and say the last few years I've tipped Palace to go down and been absolutely wrong. There's every chance I'm going to tip it again, though. But I will do some extra research on Vieira's previous managerial spells. Rob Pick says, from listening to your podcast with Dieter, I think you were of the view you spent too much on your bench. Yes, that's correct. Do you still think that? And are you conscious of trying to adapt it this season? Yes, I am very conscious of it, my friend. I think the problem is obviously since we did that brilliant podcast with Dieter Mine, our mini league winner, all these bastards have been priced at 4.5, right? Which kind of just feels like I need to make the saving. So, but I think things like that, Rob, where I might just go with, say, a 4.5 million forward this year rather than trying to force the 5 million or the 5.5 we might play, or force the 5 million Souček, and I'll just go to 4.5 million midfield or whatever. But I think defensively, there's so many good 4.5 million options. I may just go with 4.5 million options rather than a 4.0. But I think, 4.0 goalkeeper. But I did that last year. I am conscious of it, but there are so many good, particularly in the defensive areas, cheap options that I'm not even sure it's worth going a 4.0 defender. And that's another thing that's leaning me towards thinking, maybe 4.51 because of the amount of good 4.5 million options and have them available and have the 15th man as Obafemi or Keenan Davis, for example. We'll see when we get there, though, mate. Bloomer Kadira, yo, James, what's up, bro? My question is, why game week 15 is good for first wildcard? Thanks. I actually covered this on the Patreon podcast we did yesterday. This is an absolutely brilliant swing for Manchester United from game week 15, which actually runs right through to like game week 27 or 28 or so. phenomenal run. Basically, in between the group stage and the knockout stage of the Champions League, United have a phenomenal run. There are some other sides who have some decent turns around there, like Watford will enable West Ham have a good turn around about that point. By the time we get there, we'll have a better understanding. It's a personal thing. You know me, I'm generally going to use the second wild card to load up for potential bench boost, which on the face of it is probably most likely to be game week 36 this year, which means I don't really want to use the first wild card too early. United have a horrible run of fixtures before 15. Good switch then to get free in and reverse the pattern towards the kind of going into the December period. Most of the big clubs have got good December periods as well. That's the start of December, game week 15. So I think it's United turn of fixtures which has caught most people's attention. Alfredo Demetrius, can we ignore Bruno Fernandes for Man United matches at first? Any other Man United options instead? You can ignore anyone you like, mate. Alfredo is saying Bruno's too pricey with most goals coming from penalty. Yeah, maybe Jadon Sancho will win a few of them. You never know, right? I feel my initial instinct on it is they have a good run of fixtures at the start. You will want some Manchester United coverage. I think it will be easier to come down from Bruno than to get up to Bruno. And I'm probably likely to start with him. That's where I'm at the moment. But as I've said, long way to go. Lewis Plummer says, afternoon, James. Thoughts on Billy Gilmour to Norwich? As a Norwich fan, feel lucky to have him for a season as think he can play for a team higher in the table. He absolutely can. If you've been listening to my Euro pod, you'll know I think he's an absolute superstar. You saw Scotland with him in one game and you saw Scotland without him for 2 games. And I think the difference was fairly clear. Great signing for Norwich if that goes through. Looks like it's going to as well. Potential 4.5 million midfielder option, to be honest. He'll play nearly every game for Norwich, I would think. You're not expecting attacking returns, but an easy one to sit on the bench for the 2-pointers and stuff. Brilliant signing. That's the sort of signing that makes me confident he can stay up. Whereas at the moment, I probably wouldn't be, if I'm honest, Lewis. But great signing. FPL cricketer, do you think Southgate will be wary of losing the player to suspension? Both Rice and Phillips on the yellow. Wouldn't want them both missing the next round. Yep, it's covered, mate. Wouldn't be surprised if one or even both were left out. I think that's possible. Lombardetto, what players have stood up for you as far as FPL price is concerned? Tell me about your game week 1 side. All right. Let me log into the fucking website because I can't remember what team I picked as the first draft. I'll tell you what it was. Right, 3-5-2. Sanchez, Trent, Dean, Fofana, Salah, Fernandes, Rafinha, Son, Smith Rowe, Watkins, Tony on the bench, Ward, Ciarauta, Ayling, Obafemi. That's not going to be my team game week 1, and I haven't looked at it for over a week or so. I've had to log in to know what half of that was. So that's what it is. It's going to change. J. Lord Broski, if we do go on to win it, will you change the intro from the messy commentary to the winning goal commentary? Hope you're well anyway. Some much love. Love you too, buddy. Depends what the goal is, right? I mean, if Grealish goes and beats 3 or 4 men and bangs it in the corner and it's like Grealish, then yeah, we might do something like that. Possibly, my friend. Excuse me. Andre Traore, yo, James Rodriguez. When will be the double game weeks? So, there is a small possibility of double game week 1. Send people into frenzy. I think like a 1% chance. That would need a very quick announcement on Club World Cup dates and possibly Chelsea bringing a fixture forward. That's extremely unlikely. Game week 27 is going to create a blank for the League Cup final. Game week 30 for the FA Cup quarterfinals. Game week 33 for the FA Cup semi-finals. So there'll probably be some doubles in 33, but it's more likely to be a elongated week. Looks like game week 36 is the most likely. Game week 37 is also open for midweek fixtures, but the Europa League final is on the Wednesday and also the FA Cup final is the weekend before. So game week 36 is most likely to be the biggest, but there might not be many big ones this year. I mean, that could be the biggest and it might only have... No, I'd rather have Nuno than Benitez. Because with the reading I'm doing is telling me that Nuno is adaptable. I know that Rafa Benitez isn't. Rafa's got his style and his way and that's what it is. And I'm sure Rafa will do fine for Everton, as much as many of them might not be happy with that appointment. No, I'd rather have Nuno. When I wrote down 125 names to replace Mourinho, Nuno Santo was on that list. Rafa Benitez definitely was not. Alec Bateman, Marco Silva named new Fulham manager. Do you think they come straight back up? That's one for Dara at the Tinkermen, our Fulham correspondent. We'll speak to him during EFL week, get his opinion. I don't think he was that bothered that Scott Parker went, actually, because there was just a rift behind the scenes. Silver obviously did great things to get Hull up. Oh, no, actually, no, I don't think he did get Hull up, did he? I feel like he was appointed and nearly kept them up, I want to say, then jumped ship and went to Watford. He's had a very mixed bag, hasn't he? I feel like it's been more bad than good. But I think if he progresses at that level, you should think at that level he'd be quite a strong manager to go in there. The problem for Fulham is they need to recycle a lot of that squad because obviously they had so many players on loan last season. I'm not convinced. I think West Brom are probably the best place of the teams that have gone down to come back up. Championship might be a bit more open next year. Alistair Coper, I'm seeing Tomiyasu heavily linked with us. You ever watched him? Seems we are really going after Serie A players. Paratici coming in. A little worried about it. I mean, I'm not worried about it. I haven't watched Italy. Can we get some of the stars in that team, like Barella and stuff, would be good. No, I don't know a lot about him, mate, so I'm not going to try and bullshit it and blag it, Alistair. Ray Karashi, James, my man. Hope you're enjoying the Euros, pal. Very much so, mate. Hope you are too. Craig Davis says, hi, James. When you start in FPL shows on Patreon yesterday, but I'll be very honest with you, I haven't got any motivation for FPL at the moment. Everything is so focused on what's happening with England. And when it finishes, then we'll talk some FPL. Trust me. After the Euros, we're going to take a little bit break. We've got some content creators taking over our week with their content. It will be very FPL focused for many of them. Then from the following week, we're going to be very heavy into FPL right the way through. So, I mean, what are we till the start of the season? 6 weeks still? 5-6 weeks? There's so long to go. In a couple of weeks, we'll kick it all off properly. Jeff Holt, I'm going to all in 5 England, 5 Spain. Yeah, I don't mind that, mate. 2 Danish, 1 Czech, 1 Italian, 1 Belgian. Ray's asking everyone to like and share the stream. Cheers, mate. Appreciate that. Ryan says, hello. What's your price prediction for Sancho? I'm saying about 9.5. Cherie MC says, Euro, Cain or Immobile. Have 2 other Italy, 3 other England. Who likely to score more? Have 4 Spain already. Back Harry, Cherie. Back Harry. He's got 1. I'm expecting more now. Martin Boyle, hi, mate. Hope you and the family are well. Question, why do you think FPL launched so early? Cynical me says it's pure commercialism. Yeah, this is all about exposure. From their social media interactions, they'll be delighted with the price release and stuff. I found it all very boring, to be honest with you. Family are well, yeah. Why do I think they launched early? Well, they keep launching earlier and earlier. I wouldn't be surprised next year they launch like the first week of June. It's the interactions and stuff, right? If they haven't got no game, they've got no interactions, nothing to promote, no ad media spend, whatever, right? So, yeah, they'll be happy with the way the game launched. Yogesh says thoughts on Nuno. I've kind of done that already. Amen says Sancho must have. No one's a must have, mate. You're on the wrong stream. Martin Boyle says Messi, as of today, becomes a free agent. Do you reckon he'll move? Nope. I think it's just ironing out the conditions with Barcelona, and I don't think there's any concern from the parties involved, and he'll re-sign with Barcelona. I'll be amazed if he doesn't just re-sign with Barcelona. FPL finding glory. James, looking forward to a new FPL season. Just a thanks for the great Euro content. Thank you. Come on, England. Have my limitless and wild cards. Hoping to make up some good ground in Euro fantasy. Good luck. Jonathan Ajal says Foden question. He's out for FPL, Euro fantasy. I'm going to say for both. Skip at the moment. Renard 9 afternoon. Hope you're not in the doghouse after your latest recording then. No, you're going to like it. I promise you. You're really going to like that pod later. I'm certain of it. Essence says, what do you think of Havertz now and what he will be like next season, both as an FPL asset and a player? A great end to the season. I think it's probably Germany's best player at the Euros, to be honest. Looked to threat throughout. It's interesting to see him have a couple of shots of England with power because that's unusual for him. Brilliant potential, very elegant player. I like him. He's proved a lot of the comments that I myself and others made early in the season to look silly, although I don't think they were silly at the time when we made them because he really wasn't playing well at all. No, I like him. I expect him to have a good season, and I think he'll potentially be a good fantasy asset for people. Stephen Singh. Yeah, thanks for that, Stephen. I don't do politics on here, mate. Future base. Who do you think is starting for England left back against Ukraine? I think it will most likely be Luke Shaw, but as I said on the podcast yesterday, I would not be surprised if Ben Chilwell plays at left back. Would not be surprised in the slightest. Milan Petrov, hi. What do you think of Greenwood and Lingard future now? Well, I understand Lingard's being offered a new contract at United, but he's surely going to go, isn't he? Surely going to go. Greenwood is still young. It's fine. It's no issue. Darren Friendo, hi James. Which underdog in the Euro 2020 quarterfinals is most likely to spring a surprise? Well, I guess it's probably the Czechs. I guess. I mean, depends what you're waiting on underdogs. I mean, Belgium, Italy is pretty much a 50-50, isn't he? I mean, personally, I would make Italy slight favourites, personally. But I don't think you could describe either of them as underdogs. Are we saying the Czechs against Danes? Is that underdogs? Otherwise, it's Ukraine, isn't it? Switzerland, I guess, should not be underestimated again. Schwein says, do you see Varane as a likely 6 million defender? Ask me when Manchester United or someone else have bought him. I'm not convinced that that's going to happen. I know Madrid are apparently trying to get rid of players because they think they're going to get Mbappe. But, yeah, they ain't got a pot to piss in. He also says, I can see why some diehards may be disappointed, but as a United fan, if we hired Klopp in 5 years' time, I wouldn't be pissed off, put it that way, okay? Rated R, do you think Cain will play under Nuno? Well, if he stays, yes, and if he doesn't, no. I think he's up to Manchester City. Man City got to pay the money. This has always been the case. It goes back to April. If Man City pay the money that Tottenham want, Harry Kane will go to Manchester City. If they don't, Kane will stay. He's got 3 years left on his contract. He's not in a position to be forcing up shit. So I don't know which way it's going to go. I think for Kane's sake, and I've said this before, if Man City do offer the money that Tottenham want, Tottenham shouldn't be stubborn about it. It should let Harry go. Either way, he won't be joining Man City before August 13th. Tell you that now. Because he won't be playing against Tottenham in game week 1. Tottenham are not going to have that. No chance, mate. So you got at least 6 weeks to debate it out a little bit more. James Johnson said, hi, James. I'm the Italy rep on the Happy Hour Guys podcast. Nice, James. I listened to your pod. Good stuff, mate. You guys at Tottenham should be very excited about Tomoyashi. Super good and clean centre-back, right-back. Not easily bullied. Good in the air. Pleased to hear it, mate. Devesh says, Watford goalkeeper pairing, Backman and other one looking interesting. Helps if you know if the other one's Ben Foster. Yeah, reasonable. Reasonable. I actually like their start. I on my fixture ticker, first 7 fixtures, Watford actually come out top, which might surprise a few people, but got some decent fixtures in there. I mean, it's only Tottenham from last season's top 9 that they play in the first 7 or top 8 from last season. So, yeah, reasonable. And you just sit and forget it then. You don't have to worry about it. I think there'll be times where you don't want that pairing. They've got some very tough runs during the season as well. Stian said, did you skip any of the questions? Don't think so, mate. Angel Ross, hello, James, mate. Who do you want to see start for England against Ukraine? I've covered. For the wife pod, Stian saying, I think I did nearly all of them, mate. I did your one. 100% I did your one, mate. Ryan Walker, who do you think gets Golden Boot? Well, Harry Kane's got 3 games to get, 5 goals, hasn't he? To be honest, it's not normally more than 5 in Euros, so I wouldn't be surprised if it still ends up with Ronaldo, actually. James Johnson, thanks, mate. Means a lot. Really enjoyed the podcast. Surprised you guys haven't matched Arsenal with a bid for Locatelli at Sassuolo. Would be a perfect mid in the Prem, in my opinion. I wouldn't rule out that happening yet, mate. When things get leaked like that, so the Sassuolo, I haven't done a lot of reading on this. The Sassuolo president, I believe, has leaked that Arsenal were interested. I mean, I see things like that and I think, why is that coming out publicly? To alert other people that a player might be available for sale, get the price up a little bit. It wouldn't be the first time Arsenal have been used as pawns to get a price up on a player, actually. Eason says, who do you think has been Italy's best player in the Euros? Well, that's a good question. I think Spinazzola, really, across all the games, you would have to say. I have a number of impressive players. I like Barella, as I said. I think Jorginho, Locatelli, I think it's better balance for them when he plays over Verratti, though Verratti's obviously a super player. I think Immobile's done okay. Insigne can frustrate, but he's got all the ability. Berardi's a frustrating player, but it helps them play with a certain structure. Bonucci's top level. Goalkeeper's very good, Donnarumma. I think you'd have to say Spinazzola, though, wouldn't you? Johnny Weller says, will Sancho make Bruno a better or worse asset in FPL? I've no idea, mate, because I've never seen them play together. Ryan Walker, who are your top 3 replacements for Cain if he were to leave? Lewandowski, Ronaldo, Messi. Any of them would do, I think. Says, Jorginho and Bonucci been solid. Yeah, James Johnson. Yes, supposedly Leicester have bid for Berardi as well from Sassuolo. And we will end with my man on the graphics, FPL Captain, says, afternoon, mate. Hope all is well. Looking forward to that beer on the 24th. Yeah, let's keep our fingers crossed that will happen. Me and Sid will be back tomorrow with Euro content. We'll be looking ahead to obviously the 4 quarterfinals, assessing the 18s. We'll look at it from a fantasy perspective with and without wildcard as well. Suj is on it. I'm not. I'm going to bring a wildcard draft for that podcast as well. Obviously, if you want to support Planet FPL content, there's a link in the bio for both the audio and on YouTube. A link to Patreon. It's the start of a brand new month. I'll be very honest with you. The week after the Euro final, we'll have a little bit of gap in the content, but then it's going to be very, very full on up until the start of the new season with lots of content. Thanks for joining, guys. If you're in the stream, give the video a like and a subscribe on your way out. And for the benefit of those on the audio, cue music, please, man child.